I'm Rob Mark, and this is On the Mark. A few weeks ago, I met a number of college students at the NBAA convention in Las Vegas. One young lady that I met from Wichita State mentioned that not only was she learning to fly helicopters, but she was getting ready to take the practical exam for her airframe and power plant certificate, which I thought was pretty neat because I know that the industry is just as short of aviation maintenance technicians as it is of pilots. But now she also mentioned that she was a little anxious in getting ready for that practical exam because she'd heard that it might include some archaic topics like pressure carburetors or aircraft doping and fabric stitching. Of course, I realized I don't even know what a pressure carburetor is. Now, I've always assumed that pilots and AMTs were pretty much trained and tested on current material the same way. But guess what? They're not. Now, about this same time, AMT editor Ron Donner mentioned to me that the FAA had published a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, an NPRM, to update Part 147. Part 147 is the regulation that governs how AMT schools are certified. Interestingly, Ron also mentioned that the agency hadn't changed the AMT training or its curriculum for nearly 45 years. 45 years ago, Richard Nixon was president of the United States. Think about how our industry has changed since then. Now we have aircraft composites to work with and FADECs, or fully automatic digital engine controls, not to mention cockpits full of electronic instruments. And yet AMT schools are still forced to teach new technicians using the same regulated curriculum that they've been using for the last 45 years. Compare that to pilot training for a minute. If a Part 141 flight school wants to modify its curriculum, all they need to do is pick up the phone or email their local FAA principal operations inspector, and they can get the change taken care of in a couple of days if they need it. But it takes an act of Congress for an AMT school to stay current? I decided to call Brett Lovondo, the communications manager for ATEC. That's the Aviation Technical Education Council in Washington. ATEC represents the schools that are training that next generation of AMTs. Now, Brett mentioned that unlike a newly licensed pilot stepping into the cockpit, AMTs face considerable knowledge gaps when they take their new certificate onto their first job. I wonder why that is. 45 years? Think of an AMT's job as more of an open book test, he told me, rather than a list of, well, emergency memory items that pilots might think of before they take off. But then Brett said that because the maintenance curriculum is locked inside Part 147, even a minor change demands a regulatory fix. That's why AMT schools are still teaching aircraft doping and pressure carburetors instead of FADECs and composites and glass avionics. And that's why we need to shake the AMT curriculum free from Part 147, and hence why we hope the FAA will approve this NPRM. Unfortunately, approving this NPRM won't do anything to help that young lady in Wichita because right now it's focused on the curriculum, not on testing. Adding your 2 cents to the NPRM is a start, though, and it's open for comment until February the 1st of 2016. But don't wait. Add your comments today. For On the Mark, I'm Rob Mark in Chicago. Thanks for watching. And don't forget, if you liked On the Mark, you can subscribe right here, and it's free. We'll see you next time.